Canadian citizen, former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan is speaking out to CBC News from his maximum security prison in Russia. Whelan is currently serving a 16-year sentence for alleged spying. He was arrested in Moscow in 2018 while attending a friend's wedding. He maintains he was innocent and was set up. The U.S. government has also repeatedly denied Whelan is a spy. Well, our Briar Stewart recently got a surprise phone call from Paul Whelan, and he spoke candidly to her about life behind bars and how the death of Alexei Navalny might have an impact on his own story. Briar Stewart is with me live to begin the hour out of our London studio. And Briar, I'm really pleased to have you talk about this with me this morning, about this conversation. I want to hear, obviously, what you talked about, but can you just explain how it came about? Did it literally a surprise phone call from Paul Whelan in a Russian prison?
Yes, it was a surprise phone call. I will say it wasn't completely random, because we have been speaking with Whelan's family for a couple of years now, and we had kind of put in the request, passing on our contact information, saying that if he had a chance to reach out, please do. But, you know, we had no idea when that would be, if he would even call, and it just so happened that I got a call on my cell phone yesterday from a Russian number, which I typically do not get these days. And I was about to interview somebody else, and it was actually the U.S. Embassy calling me, and they said that they had Paul Whelan on the phone, and they were connecting him from the penal colony where he was. And just to clarify, too, I think the prisoners only get a short window for where they can do these calls. And so he had called, we talked for maybe about 6 or 7 minutes, and then the call ended, and then he called back, and we were able to continue our conversation. And I must say, throughout it, he did seem upbeat. He kind of described being cautiously optimistic, but he is very concerned, obviously, about Alexei Navalny's death and just what it means for his own safety. And as you mentioned, Whelan is serving a 16-year sentence. He's accused of espionage. The U.S. said he was convicted in a secretive, closed-door trial. They say he's wrongfully detained. And U.S. negotiators and the U.S. government have been working to try to get him released, along with U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich, who is also in prison in Russia. And what I wanted to talk to Whelan about was Alexei Navalny's death, because there are reports that there were negotiations underway before Navalny died that would see him part of a prisoner release swap. And the reports are conflicting, because Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he had agreed to release Navalny. Meanwhile, you have U.S. officials who say that Russian officials never even brought up Navalny's name. So reports have been conflicting, but I mean, I think it's clear that there were some negotiations underway. And now that Navalny has died under very suspicious circumstances, just what does that mean for Whelan's freedom? I asked him that. Here's some of what our interview.
If the Russian government decided they didn't want me to leave, or they wanted to pressure my four governments, they could either poison me, make me quite ill, stage an accident, or do any number of things that could go wrong and lead to my death. So hearing that someone as high profile as Navalny ended up dead in a secure prison facility makes me wonder how safe I am.
Now, he says he's optimistic because of the conversations that he has had. And in particular, he spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken last month. He said Blinken really went out of his way to reassure him that the U.S. government is doing everything it can to get him released. And in fact, just earlier this week, Canada's ambassador to Russia, Sarah Taylor, went out to the prison and met with him in person. He said they talked for about an hour and a half, and Whelan was very appreciative of that visit.
Did he give you any sense, Briar, of what the conditions are like in this penal colony and what life in jail is like for him?
Yes, he has been in this penal colony for a number of years now. He's been detained for over 5. And this colony is a few hundred kilometers southeast of Moscow. It's in a remote forested area. And he kind of described it as a village. And so prisoners are not in small cells per se, but in kind of military-style barracks. He said there are 25 prisoners sleeping on bunk beds where he lives. And he says that 6 days a week they have to do labor. And So there's a sewing workshop there, and they're basically sewing uniforms for state utility workers. And he did say that he gets along with most of the prisoners in there, but last year in the fall, he was assaulted by a new prisoner that had been brought into the unit, and that prisoner was charged for that assault. But Whelan is just very concerned, obviously, about his safety, knowing that, he believes he is a hostage taken by the Russian government to be used in a potential prisoner swap, and he does worry what could happen to him if Russia wants to apply pressure to governments like the U.S. or Canada, because Whelan does have multiple citizenships.
Briar, thank you so much. Fascinating, and obviously more coverage to come on this today, but I really appreciate that. CBC News exclusive, courtesy of Briar Stewart there in London.